Hello, this is Lisa LeRose here on Connect to Love on PRNFN, and I am joined today by the wonderful Michael J. Russ. Welcome, Michael. It's always such a delight and pleasure to have you join me for these unscripted conversations. How are you?
Good. Ditto. I'm awesome. It's always amazing to do these with you. It's one of my highlights of the week and highlights of my week because it's nice to talk about the subjects we talk about and with the knowledge that someone out there listening can mine what we say, the conversations we have, and the topics that we bring forth. They can mine them for some treasure that can enrich their life in some small or large way. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And, as often is the case, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I have a soundtrack, a song playing in my head. And this morning I actually had a reminder of a quote that started playing in my head, and I kept thinking about it. So I'm so grateful to you that you were open to exploring this, because it's always been one of my favorite quotes. And there's different people. It's interesting because different people have had the same words, they just have been written differently. And when I was exploring who to actually attribute the quote to, it goes back all the way to Eleanor Roosevelt, though. There was a woman, Flavia Weedn, that actually rewrote the quote. And so it says that some people come into our lives quickly while others stay, and they leave footprints on our hearts, and we are never, ever the same. So, and it was interesting because when I thought, oh, okay, well, how does that quote go? And I kind of kept thinking about it. And then as often as it will be, something else will come along. And I found another quote that was sort of the same thing, and it just said, the gentle footprints of kindness that you leave behind make a lifetime of soft imprints in the hearts of others that will never wash away. So now I have two favorite quotes that basically say the same thing. I thought, wow, I love that. Because that's where you and I resonate from. We resonate from not only receiving, being the recipients of those footprints on our heart, but also gently leaving footprints of kindness wherever we go. I just thought that was amazing, and it's just. You think about that, and as my mind was wandering this morning, I was thinking about all of those individuals, the friends, the people who just came in for a reason, a season, and those who are here for a lifetime, that have left footprints on my heart. And I would love to ask you, because I started thinking about all the way back into childhood. Did you have a childhood friend or a teacher that you would say left a gentle footprint on your heart and left you not the same as when you met them? It was interesting. I would say that, every place that we lived, we had made connections. And I'm sorry to say that I'm not going to be able to remember the names of certain people, many of them. It's just, I tell people all the time that our experiences kind of it shape and evolve us into who we are today. And sometimes we're not really, some of them are really so slight. I think that the first person to have an impact on my life was my first drum teacher that my mother took me to. And if I have to think back on it, it's funny because it comes to mind right now. The drum teacher, when she got tired of me beating on furniture rhythmically and decided to take me to the Officers Club back in 1965 and say, hey, my son needs drum lessons. He's beating all over things. He's got some rhythm somewhere. So here you go. And he was such a nice gentleman. We were in Taiwan at the time. It was a Chinese big band in those days. And he was very warm, very kind, very friendly, and he, in essence, taught me how to read music for the first time. And it was interesting because he also, when we went there for dinner on Saturday evenings, he would call me up to play a couple of songs.
And that is where I got my first taste of being in front of an audience. That was the introduction to something that today I'm incredibly comfortable with. So I'm very grateful to him because he didn't really have to do that. He really didn't. I have to credit him, and I've credited him many, many times with being the person who helped me first introduced me to being in front of people to speak or to be in front of them, perform in some way. Right, I wasn't speaking, but I was performing, and having to do it with a bunch of other people, and get comfortable and get focused. And that's a focus that I draw upon today for many things. I draw upon it for golf. I draw upon it for when I do play, sitting with other people. There's a certain something that I learned from him, a focus and attention that I, 64 years later, well, not 64, more like 50 some odd years later, still use to this day.
Wow. That's so, and it's funny, I was just thinking about your drum teacher the other day, just because of that expression and that freedom and really cultivating that in a child who has a natural gift for it. It's amazing when an adult sees that in a child. Not only did your mother see it, but he saw it in you as well, and then to invite you up on stage is even more profound because it just, it's like almost like an acceptance into the club, and to be able to allow your light to shine. That's really wonderful.
It's
really,
interesting
really
that we
wonderful.
can track this back. It's interesting to be able to track back something that you are incredibly comfortable with today. Where did that emanate from? It's I know people who have stage fright, who the last thing they can do is any confidence in front of people, and in my view, it's because as children we're not encouraged to get comfortable in those circumstances, and with whatever it may be, doing a class project or doing it with other people or getting in a play or whatever it may be. But it's nice to be able to track that comfortability back to something, decades and decades earlier. And I got to say, and that is, because I wasn't in any plays before then. Heck, I think I was 7, and nothing. But what was yours? I want to know yours.
It's funny as you were talking. I had a teacher. I had many teachers that influenced me, but there was one that I will never forget her smile, and her name was Mrs. Yudkovic. And so you would think with that name that she was married to somebody that was, maybe she was Polish or whatever, but she was actually Jamaican, and she had the most beautiful smile, and she had these gorgeous false eyelashes and this beautiful afro, and she was in my world like a rock star. She would, she just dressed. We were in sort of like an open area classroom, which at the time was sort of an experimental thing, so there was no walls.
True. Yes.
So you had desks and everybody, but so it was what I remember about her, and it, the same thing about the love of music. We did do our music class in a closed room, and we had drums. They were the type that you just pound on, and so she encouraged us during music to bring different things in for show and tell, and I brought in my very first album I ever owned, which was a Kiss record. I was fascinated by the cover of Kiss and their boots and their makeup and everything else. And what I remember about her, which was really funny, because you don't think about you bring the album for show and tell, and she said, "Well, let's listen to a song." And so I had the whole album. I picked Detroit Rock City, which was like a big rocky thing, and it didn't discourage her. What was so interesting, she actually asked if she could hear another song on the album, and so I played Beth off of the album. And and I don't really it's so funny because I remember that being, for me, we talked about acceptance last week. I was always the new kid. And for her to sort of allow me that space and that grace to do something so bold, not just to bring in the album and show it, but actually to let my fellow classmates experience it, and then, not just say, okay, well, thank you very much, Miss LeRose. That was interesting. She said, okay, let's hear some more. Like, what else do you like about this album? And, I always felt very connected to her heart. She had such a beautiful heart. And I always wonder, like, I think about, the colorful scarf she wore and, just her expression and, allowing us to sort of experience some of her culture, because I grew up in Western Canada. So for somebody to be from Jamaica and to come to Canada was pretty exotic for us as a child. And I will never forget her. I always wonder what happened to her. But, she was just a very special lady. Very special lady. And, and I had a couple kid crushes. I had Mr. Arnold, who when I moved to the United States, so that was a whole other thing. He was another very just tender individual. He was my social studies teacher. And, when you come into a new school, sometimes I think I was only at that school 8 months. So it was, but he definitely impacted me. It wasn't really my favorite subject, but he brought it to life for me. And I think when you have somebody that can do that, it leaves those footprints on your heart. Is there somebody in your world, Michael, that has brought something to life for you?
Let's see. I've been thinking about it since you're listening to you, and in another track level of my mind, attempting to come up with somebody. I would say there's a gentleman, and his name escapes me at this particular point. However, when I went to San Jose State, I was encouraged to join this program called New College. It was a college within a college down there. It was a program. By the way, similar to the elementary school you went to in Colorado, I went to a school for the first time when I was 11 in Colorado Springs that was very much like the experimental elementary school you went to. It had no walls and open, it was really, really rather cool and very, very enlightening. However, when I went to San Jose State and got involved with this New College, what was interesting about it is they would teach, it was a bunch of hippie professors that wanted to do something new, right? Biology teacher, long gray hair with ponytail, and he taught biology and he taught about the world. I learned about a lot of different things, biology and geology, and he'd spent time in the Amazon, and visiting and living a little bit in the Amazon, and he would tell us the things that I remember today, things that most people don't even think about when they think about Amazon. Like the Amazon has no grass on the nothing on the floor. The floor of Amazon is hard earth because the trees are so tall, nothing grows on the ground. Everything grows in the trees. Everything happens in the trees, going up 40, 50, 60 feet. That's where life is. And what's interesting is he's the first gentleman who taught me about underground homes. And we talked about a variety of different stuff. Yeah, underground homes built into the sides of hills, because we talked about alternative living and, straw bale structure and architecture and all these various interesting things that just kind of broaden my entire horizon, in life. And I think to this day about the different alternative lifestyles that you can live in terms of alternative building structures that they're out there. I keep telling my girlfriend this, in a couple of years we're going to go to Hawaii. I'm going to buy a piece of property, and one of my dreams is to build a container home out of mats and containers. Build a very luxurious space, but do it from something that's already there, using resources that are already there. There are already a lot of containers there because everything on the island comes to the island on containers. And so they're in abundance, and then use local Hawaiian architects to design something really cool that kind of fits in with the island, that works with a couple of bungalows. Something very simple on a hillside on the Big Island. There are some really
a dream come true.
Yeah,
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I dream about it. Imagine it all the time. Imagine it happening. Imagine where it's what part of the island I want to live on. I mean, imagination is the greatest gift I think we've been given as human beings, is the ability to imagine, and it's such a powerful force. But this gentleman was somebody who stood out at that particular time in my life. In terms of putting footprints on my heart, my soul. The information that he was able to share has helped shape me and helped give me a different view of the world. I guess that qualifies as somebody who really, to me, has done that. And it's with as many schools as I went to. There's one other gentleman who I'd have to look in the yearbook to get his name. This is really weird. Names, I have to explain to our audience that over the years I've trained myself to live in the present. And that means that I may have it in the back of my mind somewhere as an experience. However, I've pretty much let it go. I've trained myself to let go of what happened yesterday so that I can enjoy and embrace today. And that means that my mind is not focused on people or circumstances or things and experiences of the past. I'm here living now in the present, writing a podcast. I'm doing a radio show with you. And so these names there's been so many of them. However, I can see his face in my mind's eye. He was a black biology teacher in Turkey, Izmir, Turkey, where I met my girlfriend. It was 1973. And we were a couple of months, 3 months from coming home. And I was 14 at the time. My brother was 16. And we wanted to go. A bunch of students were taking a summer vacation trip to LeRose, Greece, which was probably about a 7-hour bus ride, on those typical buses with chickens and goats and that kind
I know
of thing.
that well.
Yeah,
I was on a bus like that more than once.
Yeah, it's what you experience in a foreign country in
no
the 70s.
Air conditioning.
That's right. Windows are all open. It's hot. It's hot. Windows are all open. Dust blowing in. It's just what makes it. I'll tell you what was unique about the bus ride in a second. However, what happened was my brother and I wanted to go on this trip, and my mother said, no, not going to happen, just the two of you going down there. And I said, well, what if we got a chaperone, an adult chaperone? She goes, who would that be? And I said, we'll find somebody. So we went around to this biology teacher. He had to be at the time, I think, in his mid-30s. He was in his mid-30s at the time. He was a huge audiophile. He had a huge wall with more records than I'd ever seen in my life, more 30 LPs. At the time, there were records, LPs, vinyl LPs, and that he traveled all over the world with, from jazz to funk to everything you can imagine. He had classical. And so we went to him and we said, hey, a bunch of students are going down for a week to LeRose, Greece, and we want to go, but my mom says you can't go. So long story short, we convinced him to escort us down. We got a place to stay there. Mom cleared it with Dad, and, okay, bye, see you later. Now, I'm 14 years old. What parent lets a 14 and a 16-year-old go away for a week?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I was thinking, I thought, maybe they just went for like a day and then they came back, or, but you were there for a week. That's incredible.
We were there for a week, but we'd been there before. The family had been there before, and twice, in fact, and it involved a bus ride. So by the time people were starting to leave to go down there. The bus was leaving the next morning at like 8 o'clock. We're up till like 1 trying to get the okay from my dad. And we finally got the okay. We packed up our stuff. We went she dropped us off at the bus station. We took a cab actually to the bus station at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And he met us there, and he was all packed. And we all got on this bus. It was a green bus, an old green Mercedes bus. And literally it did have chickens in the upper shelf and in the back, and some rabbits and some other animals and people. It was just a lot of Turks. We were all going down, we're on this commercial bus, right? And we got to a part, and I'd say we'd been there twice before. We were on an upper plateau, and we had to go down to the lower plateau to the ocean because we needed to catch a ferry. And when I say lower plateau, I'm talking about 6,000 feet. We had to go down a winding, S-curving road. And in Turkey, there are no guardrails. So, but before we got there, the bus driver only knew one route. And we were in this bus, and there was a detour. And the gentleman who driving the bus, the older guy, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden he makes a right turn, and the detour is left. He makes a right turn because we go through this forest. We get to the end of the forest, and then we get, we'll see the whole valley and the whole 9 yards. What we didn't know at the time is that the detour was because there was a forest fire. There was a forest fire. So we go driving. This is one of these things you remember for like an eternity. And if you can imagine, he went through the detour because it was the only way he knew how to go. And literally on the left side of the road was the fire. The right side of the road was where the fire wanted to go to. So we're sitting there, and the bus is heating up, and the heat is just, it was only for like a quarter mile. But it was still the fact that there was a forest fire raging on the left side of the road, and we're driving down this road, and he's going as fast as he possibly can to get away from these embers that are like jumping over the bus. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there going, we got through this going, did he just drive through a forest fire? I mean, come on already. It was hilarious. But, these are the things that you remember. And, we went back to Rhodos, Greece a couple of years ago, about 5-6 years ago. And I remember, coming in, and we went to Lindos where we went and took a cab. And it's a beautiful, quaint place. It's nice to see places 40 years later and the growth that's actually occurred. And the memories come bounding back. And we actually found a place that we were looking for. We're looking for this place to buy this ceramics. Because back then my mother had bought some ceramics, and I wanted to get her something that was unique to that place again.
Oh, that's great.
And we actually did finally find the place. It had moved. The highway had moved. Because, it's off the highway. Wow. It's off the highway to the right. The whole highway had moved. It's just interesting. There are once these experiences start rolling back, they come back, and like I said, they come back in good measure. I mean, there's a ton of them. However, I'll never forget this particular teacher. He was so wonderful. We hung out together for a week, and we partied and had a great time, and with the other students, and it was one of those things. Just for our listeners, 14 years of age for me was like 19. Because we had been running around that same city since I was 12. We were playing in a band. We were out late, and the whole band. That was another thing too. It was the first band I'd ever been in. It was a 9-piece R&B band, rhythm and blues band. That we did a lot of things in a couple of years that left a huge impression on me and helped me grow up and evolve and transform and have a lot of very unique experiences. And, I didn't have to do it. You don't have to do something. You can be shy. You can say, no, I don't want to do that because I'm afraid of this, or, it might lead to that. However, the one thing that I've learned in life, especially with people, if there's an opportunity, especially an opportunity to step outside of your comfort zone, even though it is uncomfortable, just the decision, thinking about it's uncomfortable. Sometimes just doing it, it brings a spice to your life that you would have never otherwise had, and you can surprise yourself. A lot. I'd like to know about another one of yours. Come on, you had the teacher. Who else?
as you were talking about the Amazon, you were talking about your experience with your teacher. I had a very dear friend. She actually I met her. She became a neighbor of mine. And I'll never forget when Jennifer drove up the very first time to the house, because her husband, who became an ex-husband, was not really the kindest to her and her children, and he had her drive around in a wreck of a car. This car, used to break down and all kinds of stuff. But she moved in a couple doors down, and she was very gregarious and very delightful. She was so full of life that you couldn't imagine. I mean, she was a travel agent. She was a mom. She had just such a dear, dear heart. She unfortunately had juvenile diabetes, which ultimately cost her life, but way too young. But she called me up one day and she said, you talk about those opportunities. She said, I'm going to Costa Rica on an ecological tour. They're trying to sell us this tour. Do you want to go with me? And I thought, you know what? Sure. And there was only going to be the tour guide, and then these other travel agents, and her and I. So there was only 8 people. So we were a very small group. And so we got to the airport, boarded the flight, and it was so interesting because it was almost like the whole trip was just charmed. As soon as we got on, they looked at us and they said, "Hey, guess what? We have some seats in first class. Would you like to sit up there?" Sure. So we sat up there, and it was, after it was from the trip from Miami to San Jose in Costa Rica, and they offered us this drink called cacique, which is one of the native liquors to Costa Rica. Needless to say, we were feeling not much pain by the time we landed, and our tour guide, Hector, met us. Now, what was so funny was she was such a free spirit, and, I am a free spirit, but not to the degree that she was. And if you could imagine us landing, and the other travel agents, I would say that they were like old school mistresses. I don't know how to explain it any other way. But we had, it was just like such a charmed, fantastic trip from beginning to end. But, the first, so we got onto this bus and they were sort of looking, a little annoyed at us because we were laughing and joking and having a great time. And we checked into the very first hotel in San Jose, and Jennifer put her luggage on the bed and sat on it, and the bed collapsed. Well, even just imagine, she was not a heavy person. So,
oh my gosh!
You can imagine we had to call the front desk, and we're like, honestly, we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything to break the bed. And I mean, but you get into that mindset where you find a friend and you just giggle and you cannot stop laughing, uncontrollably. And we did that. I mean, the whole trip was blessed with multiple events like that. We went into the rainforest, and every morning we would get up early. We'd be out near the waterfalls at like 5:00 in the morning, listening to the birds and learning about the animals and the wildlife. And it was interesting because the other travel agents, they just wanted to get there, see the lodge, then trounce through as fast as they could and go back to the hotel room and sit in the air conditioning, and that was not us. But the one place that we went to was Lake Arenal, where they have the volcano, and it was the lava was coming down, and we were sitting in the water, and we went to a nightclub and, was learning how to do salsa, not the American way, but the truly Spanish way. And it started pouring down rain, and the club, just flooded. But we were still, we stayed up dancing, the whole night through. And when, but I think about her all the time. She lost her battle with diabetes on Christmas, during Christmas, but she just, she was like a comet that streaks across the sky, so full of life, and just really like reminded you, no matter how difficult things sometimes were in her personal life, that she always, she had so much love for her children. She had love for horses. Everything she did with a passion. And I always think about that. I have some wonderful photos of her. And, many years after she passed, I did end up going back to Costa Rica. It's one of my favorite places, and probably because it was, the time spent with her there. But, I'll never forget, just from the time that she drove up, and, until she left this earth, there was always something so special about her. She could just make me laugh, and I think that was one of the greatest gifts that she left on my heart. Have you? I'm sure, I know you love to laugh. And, there's people who...
I've seen some things. Yeah, it's here's the interesting thing about laughing. Again, it occurs in the moment, and if you're not there, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss that opportunity. It is one of those wonderful things that occurs because something has happened right then, right there. It's touched you in a certain way, and I know if you're stressed out or you're worried about something or whatever, it goes right by you. And so connecting to the moment is when, this is what I can say, is connecting to the moment is when you have these experiences, and at least the ones that are incredibly brief. People you meet with only you pass briefly, and that in some way touch you, and as I like to say, and I've probably said it before, I like to be the 1%, or the 1 degree. I like to be the 1 degree, not the 1%, the 1 degree. That is the person that impacts somebody to 1 degree, that has 1 degree of impact on a person, because 1 degree of impact can lead to 180 degrees of transformation over time. Over time. And over many years, you're going in one direction. You have 1 degree of change, and you end up in a completely different place. And I always encourage people to be the 1 degree of change for someone else. That's how we're of service to someone, passing on something very positive, passing on. It could be an experience. It could be something that's said. It could be some way that you help them through a challenging point, a moment in their lives, whatever it could be. And that, to me, is how, because we've talked about ourselves and things, but how do we actually create this with intention? I'm always fascinated by that. How can we, with intention, be that person that helps someone move that 1 degree that allows them to help to evolve in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have, perhaps. We're just a cog in the wheel, so to speak. We're just a piece of fraction, like say, a grain of sand on the beach of the universe, so to speak. However, the impact is huge, and I kind of think about that sometimes when I'm out and about and I encounter people, because that's the intention I have when I engage with someone. And I did today, from the moment I went to get some gas this morning. I went to Tallahassee, a couple of hours away, and the woman I got gas from, I bought some gas, and it's like I want to come in with a big smile and a big presence, and I want to be impactful in a positive way, to let this individual know that there are other people out there who just cared about, getting this, getting that, getting whatever, and in their own little world. And I just want to see them smile. And that to me is worth its weight in gold, for the day. If I could do that once or twice in a day, then it's I've accomplished my mission. I don't have the opportunity to do it every day. I work out of my house, so I don't have the opportunity to do it every single day. But when I go to the grocery store, I look at everybody. It's really strange. I was thinking about this the other day, and I want to say, how many times do you actually very casually walk by someone and say, "Hi, Jenny, how's your day?" When you've never seen them before, but they're wearing a name tag that says Jenny or Bob or Alicia or what. I get the strangest look sometimes. When they say thank you very much, I say, "Hey, thanks, Jenny. Have a great day." And they're like, it just takes me a split second to see the name tag. It just and then I look them in the eye and I say, "Thank you very much," and I call them by name, and instead of just, "Hey, thank you very much." I love doing that. I love doing it. With waiters, walk by somebody, you get the strangest looks sometimes from people. You go, "How did you know I was, Jeffrey?" And I say, "Well, it's on your name tag." They forget it. They have it on. They forget.
Yeah, they do forget.
But it's cool.
Yeah.
To me, it's
but
just
sometimes
fun.
even I've had people, when I give them my credit card, and they'll address me by the name when they hand it back to me, which a lot of times it's a personal exchange. We have, there's a lot to be said in the power of your name, and we know who, I think there's a sort of like a soul recognition that comes along with that, and and I think imparting inspiration and imagination and sharing the little bits of wisdom, those pieces of paper that we talked about that you pick up along the way, those are all gifts that you can give somebody else that can leave that footprint on their heart. One of the things, and when when I was looking, that's why I said I was so surprised, like so many variations of the saying. One of them said, "Some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some people move our souls to dance. They awaken us to a new understanding with the passing whisper of their wisdom. Some people make the sky more beautiful to gaze upon. They stay in our lives for a while, leaving footprints on our hearts, and we're never ever the same." And I thought, oh my gosh, I love that. Some people make the sky more beautiful to gaze upon. Wow. Oh, yeah. And I know you, with your photography from your mirror, you create those moments for a lot of people who don't have an opportunity to see the Florida sunsets or the Florida sunrises.
Yeah, I love the those little things. It's really interesting because that's a spring and fall thing. In a winter, spring, fall, and winter. In the summer, because of the humidity, you don't really have awesome sunsets. You have a lot of clouds, and the sun is trying to find its way through. And sometimes, in many cases, it never happens. But the best sunsets are spring and fall, and it's really amazing the kind that you can have. And I don't know, I'm mesmerized by sunrises and sunsets. Sunrise because I can see out the back of our house the sunrises. And sunsets that I have to go to the beach for. However, why not? If it's going to be a beautiful, why not? I mean, why not? Why would we not do it? It was funny because when I took my mother to the Big Island of Hawaii, it was about 12, 13 years ago. I took her without Sandy. By the way, I said, "This is a trip for me and Mom." And I took my mother to the Big Island of Hawaii. I found a VRBO over there with 2 king-size beds, and it was upstairs, downstairs, and she was doing fine. She had no problems back then. And we went over to the Big Island of Hawaii for a week. And what's interesting is that, we stayed in Kailua Kona, and the interesting thing about Kailua Kona is because it faces to the west, everybody gathers at various places to see the sun go down. When it's going to go down, it's this whole ritual. No matter what you're doing, you stop and you go to drive to this place to see the sun go down. And I mean, there's several places around that area. Some people are on the beach, others are up on the hill. We went to this shopping center that had this lookout, and everybody would park in the shopping center, and then they go to the lookout and experience the sunset. And I thought that was really, really rather cool. It's kind of like my girlfriend and I saw Top Gun, Maverick last week. She wanted to go see it. She'd seen the original.
I was so surprised. And absolutely loved the movie from from so many different aspects. So I'd love to hear what you were going to say. I apologize.
My take on the movie was that the writers actually were able to capture his own emotional transformation. I thought they did a really good job of that. That's what I look for in movies. I love movies that have a personal transformational aspect to them, where someone goes from thinking or doing this and they shift and change over the course of the movie. And that's exactly what happened with Maverick. I thought it was really, really I thought it was awesome. I walked out of that theater feeling absolutely amazing. And the thing about the movie that made it so yeah, you did. I thought that they did an awesome job of putting that together. And what's unique about it is that we went to the movies, and I didn't know really what to expect. I'm like, no, okay, great, it's going to be another Top Gun thing. The first one was almost like, the first movie was almost teenager-like in comparison to this movie that was mature. It had a mature theme about it. Yeah, it had fun, it had the sense, but it had a mature theme. And in my view, it's a theme that young people hopefully get. It's this theme where you have an evolution. You can actually change who you are. You can evolve beyond that. You can drop that whole devil may care thing, and you can move. You can progress in life, evolutionary, and get and achieve the connection that you wish you'd had all your life. That you wish you'd had all your life. I think it's awesome. It's amazing to actually see to see a movie that you would otherwise be characterized as, just some kind of fodder for millennials. That it would have that sort of mature theme to it. I really don't know what else they could have done because they did the first one in the way that they did it. But I loved it. I absolutely loved every aspect of it, and there are so many of them. It's really, really rather cool.
I'm glad you brought it up, because that was the one thing when he reconnected with. At the time in the beginning of the movie, you don't realize she was a love interest, but the connection. Like she actually said to him, you always leave. And then the little girl said, don't, hurt my mother's heart. And it was interesting because you could see so many, it was almost like the themes, one of the upper officers said, Captain Maverick, how is it that you're still a captain? You've never evolved. I mean, literally, like,
right.
What called him on the carpet, like, okay, here you are, this is your career and this is where you are. Right. Now, yes, you have a passion, you love flying, but you also live irresponsibly or dangerously, or, you have been awarded all these accolades, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't have that connection that you need, that love connection, that heart connection that really pulled it all together, which I think whether or not, I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but, the connection with his friend's son. I mean, and that was so well done. And the music that they brought into it, that really moved my heart. I mean, I walked away with those footprints on my heart from that movie, honestly, Michael. I didn't want it to end. I was just like, wow. I mean, it checked off all those boxes for me, just like you said. It really did. That was the surprise of it. The surprise of it is that it made you feel like anything is possible, like you can come back to a love and change, evolve to the point where you can embrace it. You can embrace the connection, whereas 40 years earlier, 30 years earlier, whatever it was, I don't know what age he was, but 25 years earlier in his career, he was just a loose cannon and devil may care adrenaline junkie. And as he matured, the beautiful thing about it was actually recognizing that he
that he had actually lost something very valuable to him, and that he didn't appreciate it. He didn't appreciate it, which is really the interesting thing when it comes to connection, when it comes to footprints. People do leave footprints on your heart, and you don't exactly know how to handle them at the time. You don't know how to handle them. And I was in love with a woman in college for a couple of years, and everything with us was absolutely perfect. And I wonder, the only reason it didn't continue beyond a couple of years was because her parents were against an interracial relationship. And it was a different time. It was in the late 70s, and I mean, let's face it. Nowadays, you can't turn on the television without having seeing interracial relationships in all kinds of commercials and movies and television. Back then, not such a thing. And what was interesting about it is that I think back to what to the footprints that were left, that she left on my heart. I think back and I would, because I was able to get together with her 5 years after we had broken up and have dinner with her, and it was really a wonderful experience to kind of acknowledge that I saw things kind of going nowhere. There were threats to her and her ability to stay in California going to school because she was from Hawaii. Out-of-state tuition is incredibly expensive. And her grandmother was paying her tuition and pulling the purse strings and said, "Hey, you keep this up, you're going to come back to Hawaii. I'm not going to foot the bill for this." And I said, "You know what? You've got a lot of life to live, and best thing for us at this particular point, no matter how much it hurts, is to go our separate ways so that you can fulfill whatever dream it is that you have for yourself, and whatever my destiny is for me." And so, I mean, it wasn't one of those. Sometimes relationships end like that. Sometimes they end amicably. I know it was amicable for me, but 5 years later, she asked why it ended. And I'm going, I thought I was pretty clear about that at the time. Your parents are making it really hard to, threatening to take you back, bring you back to Hawaii to go to University of Hawaii, and that's not what you wanted in life. And she went on to have a great career with a major company and get her master's, and I'm so happy for her. Although I always wonder what might have been. You think about that because she was such an amazing and mature person. These are things that happen. Relationships, close relationships, they will leave footprints on your heart. They'll be dancing all over it, and you have to be able to recognize not everything is going to last forever. And I guess the culmination of that, because if I stayed with her, I never would have met my other Hawaiian girlfriend who left even bigger footprints on my heart. And get to the point where I am now with love of my life, who I left back in 50 years ago, who we're celebrating 50 years of knowing each other this year.
That's so incredible.
And 21 years together in October. I think we're going to go to Cabo and celebrate. And it's really kind of interesting.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, things do. It's kind of like, it's funny because the movie Maverick made me think about that. Right, I went away for 38 years. I had 2 marriages. I had lots of relationships, and I had things going on, finding myself, so to speak. People think, "Oh, wow, yeah, were you always that confident?" No, I was not always that confident guy that I am today. I've done a lot of work on myself. And this is what we have to do. People who come into our lives, who leave footprints on our heart, they are people who help shape our attitudes and our thinking about ourselves and the world around us. And they're the ones that help us take advantage of the opportunity of leaving them and engaging with other people. You can look back. So if I hadn't done that, this would have never occurred. And if I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have ever occurred. And all that involves people. It's not just the events. Events, it's people. It's always people. And that's the most beautiful thing that I attempt to get across to people who are having a challenging time in life, is that even somebody who's leaving you now is doing you a favor. It's not problematic situation. They're doing you a favor if it didn't happen, if it didn't work out the way it was supposed to, and it didn't end well. The opportunities exist to learn from that. It's something that you can apply perhaps in the next relationship, something that you can, some way that you can grow from the experience. Maybe perhaps you move 1 degree to the right, and you never can tell what'll happen. I didn't know I would run into her again 38 years later. I had no clue until somebody called me one day. Like, you never can really tell. However, you have to work at it. You have to. Those footprints are left there, and if you really want to reclaim something or whatever, you have to work on yourself and move and continually evolve and be loving to yourself, be loving to take care of yourself. And I guess I'm going off on this tangent because I have another friend who is still having issues with loss. And they're even leaving footprints on your heart, or they're dancing all over it. In his view, because there are people who, not every connection you have ends in a way that is amicable or happy. Nobody really wants to end a relationship. I was sitting there just writing about the perception of loss and how that really shapes what it is that your evolution going forward, how you perceive the loss of a connection, the loss of someone who's left footprints on your heart. How do you do that? And how do you move? What's the process that you can tap into to allow yourself to grieve and be sad and then be grateful? That's really, I guess, the process. And it's interesting how we've done that. You move just about every year. We've had to leave friends. We've had to leave people who've left footprints on our heart. And I had to do it every 2 years up to 15, and I've done it many more times since then. How can you let our audience let our audience into how you were able to reconcile that?
For me, and actually I was just speaking about this with my brother a few days ago, because we lived a very unconventional life. We were in a hockey family, and my brother put it best. He said, we didn't think about moving and going to different schools, and really led a life where we were at rinks, we were around adults, we were constantly on the go. And, so people look to, wow, your dad's in hockey, so it's like there's something to be said. And my brother said, he met, as a child, he met every hockey hero he ever had. He had that opportunity. And, you think about, like, he played hockey himself and then, started getting into coaching. But, to have that recognition and that gift, never that, I had to leave my friends. And it wasn't until we moved to Pittsburgh that we sort of put down some roots. My dad kind of left the hockey world, but he always had sort of an exciting lifestyle, and he came from a very small town called Trail, British Columbia. It's not, there's not a lot there. I mean, and the to kind of see where he evolves, but he always had that spark, and he and my mother had an amazing relationship. I don't really recall them arguing much when I was a child, because they, my mother was always like, okay, let's just pick up our roots and let's go. This is a good opportunity for your father. And, she never looked at it like, oh gosh, here we go again. And we didn't look at it like that. I was very good at, back in the day before all of the technology, I remember in first grade having a pen pal. And we had an opportunity, my teacher talked about leaving footprints on your heart. It was like, okay, she found a group of students at another school in England, and they became our pen pal. I'm like, I was so excited to have a pen pal that I could write a letter to and post it, and I would wait for that response. But in moving, I gained countless pen pals. And, I still have kept in contact with a girl. I mean, she's like a sister to me that I met when I was in 6th grade. And we, and my mother was really great about that too. She kept in contact with so many different individuals, and she actually, in a lot of the cities where there wasn't a newcomers club or a welcome wagon, she would found it because she knew what it was always like to be new. And so that was one of the gifts that she gave other people that were new to an area. She introduced them. They would have luncheons. They would, find common threads and anchor people into a community. And it was really a nice gift. And I think, she was one of those people who definitely left footprints on my heart that way as well, because she was always so welcoming to strangers. And, I think it's
so beautiful. So beautiful. It is, you made me think of one other person. It's interesting, and I wouldn't have thought about this particular individual, but I'll tell you, but this is just take 1 minute or so to tell you about this gentleman by the name of Alejandro Garcia. Alejandro Garcia, I met him at San Jose State, my first year at San Jose State, my first month I met him. And we were in the dorms together. He was downstairs, I was upstairs. And I came across him, and he invited me to his parents' restaurant. They had a Mexican restaurant up in Mountain View, which is now dead center of Silicon Valley. Actually, we were very close to the San Jose State was downtown, and Silicon Valley was from there, Cupertino, all the way up to Stanford, to Palo Alto. And bottom line is, he's still a wonderful friend today, brother from another mother, so to speak. It's kind of what I've got several of those, and but he's one of my oldest friends. 1977 is when I met him, and I'm thinking about it because I had two other friends I met. The one prior to him in 1974 that I met, who just passed away 12 years ago, and another one from '83 that passed away. Two of my longest friends, and it's what's interesting is he taught me about Mexican food. He also taught me about tequila, Mexican food, tequila, because his family was a restaurant family. He ended up he owns 3 restaurants right now, 3 of the most famous restaurants in Pleasanton, California, and Mountain View, and his family still operates the restaurant that he took me to in 1977.
Wow, how fun!
It's a famous place. Yeah, it's a famous restaurant in Mountain View, and it was just something that he and his father and mother, his mother and father, are amazing. Or his mother is absolutely brilliant. Her recipes are still being used to this day. So you can make connections with people. Yeah, you can make connections with people that are deep and abiding, and they can last. Look at that.
Absolutely, and I think when you step into those friendships and those connections, you step into a space of no time where it doesn't matter if you haven't talked to the person for 6 months. You connect with them, you feel them in your heart, you hold them in your heart wherever you go, and you just pick it up and you pick up right where you left off. No time has even passed. And
absolutely true.
There was one more quote. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to let you close out the show. But it said, "How very softly you tiptoed into my world, almost silently. Only a moment you stayed, but what an imprint your footprints have left on my heart."
Wow. I don't know how I'm going to top that, except to say that I would love to next week talk about for people who maybe have a heart that's kind of closed, where they've had footprints that have trampled on their heart maybe a little bit, and they need to open it up. I would love to next week kind of expand this to how you open your heart again, so that footprints can actually be imprinted on your heart now from something that maybe happened at some point in your past. How do you let that go and get new footprints? on your heart. It's so invaluable to be vulnerable, to be open, to allow other people into your life, and because you never know how your life will be enriched unless you open the door. You have to do that. So that's the way I will lead people. For those of you who are listening at PRN FM, thank you so much. I know Lisa and I are incredibly grateful for your listenership. And if you want to hear this episode again, please check out the Connect to Love podcast on Apple and Google and Spotify, etc. Connect and the number 2 and Love, which is an amazing resource for being able to listen again or share this episode with somebody again. Until next Saturday, though, I really, really wish you the best. This week, make it a point to, with intention, to make some connections that leave some footprints on your heart.
Thank you. I will do that, and looking forward to next week, and abundant blessings to you all.